Well, whenever you buy something, you get a receipt. But when you pay your taxes, the government doesn't tell you exactly how it's spending your money. Representative Mike Quigley plans to change that, and he's joining us live on the phone tonight from Washington. Representative Quigley, welcome back to Politics Tonight.
Thanks for having me, Paul.
Glad you're with me. So, the amendment you've introduced, I know it's an amendment, it's an act about taxpayer receipts for federal spending. Tell us what it would do and why it matters to us in Chicago.
Well, look, I'm trying to do it two different ways, through a bill or an amendment. Like in Chicago, we suffer from a deficit of trust. It's very hard to lead without the public's trust. The best way to respond to that is to make government more transparent, more accountable. We can earn this public's trust back. The way to do that here, I think, is to let people know how their tax dollars are being spent. So the Taxpayer Receipt Act actually gives folks a breakdown of their individual contributions to Social Security, defense spending, Medicare, and other federal programs. It also tells them their percentage of the federal debt and how much money the federal government had to borrow per citizen.
Congressman, how is that different from, I know there's White House websites and other websites that allow us access to see sort of estimates of where money's being spent in budget areas. How is your bill different from that?
Yeah, first it codifies it, so it makes it permanent. Second, it's far more detailed, and it's far more accessible. I mean, I applaud the White House for moving toward transparency. It's a good idea. It's something we should do on a permanent basis.
Now, the amendment failed in committee today. You did get some Republican support. So I have to ask you, is there hope?
No, I think there's some hope. I think there's some miscommunications between members about what this bill would actually do, and actually there's almost negligible cost. So once we get this message across, I think we'll be okay. A lot of legislation has a few false starts before it passes. We think this one will eventually pass.
So obviously the reason, and you've been spending a lot of time with transparency and openness in government, how does this impact the budgeting process, the spending of Washington? I mean, is it sending a warning to your colleague, look, we're watching?
Well, I think it does that. But think about it this way. It gives, like a grocery receipt, it helps the consumer, the taxpayer, make a more informed decision. We hear some interesting things that most Americans think that we spend, for example, about half our budget on foreign aid, when the real number is closer to 1.5%. It's much easier to communicate with your lawmakers in a representative democracy if you know exactly what the situation is and how your tax dollars are being spent. You can make preferences that way. Right now, a lot of taxpayers are doing what we do in D.C., and unfortunately, that's flying blind with their tax dollars.
So, again, as I said, you focused a lot in your first couple of terms here on transparency, accountability. It's very important to you. You even had an op-ed piece appear yesterday in print. But also, I've got to ask you about something here close at home in Chicago, because this is your district. And I'm sure you're very familiar with Rahm Emanuel's Infrastructure Trust Fund. It passed City Council. But in the world of transparency and openness, I got to tell you, he doesn't seem to be following the Quigley lead. That is what has been a big concern for a lot of aldermen here. He's not showing the openness of the process and where things are going as you might require. I'm just curious to know what your reaction to this is and whether you're satisfied with the transparency we're seeing.
Well, I have faith that it'll be there. I mean, I'll remind folks of something. When Rahm Emanuel was chief of staff to the President of the United States, he met with me for 2 times for several hours. We talked on the phone for several hours, and it was all about, if you recall, tax increment financing reports I wrote and how transparency can be improved. And it's something he's already done in his administration to make that process far more transparent. So, look, I've got to worry about North Korea, Iran, Syria, and getting the economy. I have every faith that my mayor will get this package going, create jobs, rebuild our city, and the aldermen will be satisfied that it becomes more transparent.
All right, well, I hope so, and I hope you'll follow the lead you're setting in Washington. U.S. Representative Mike Quigley, Chicago's 5th District. As always, I sure appreciate when you join us. Thank you, sir. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. Take care.
You too.